Fantastic. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for coming back. Do you want to fiddle with that? Probably muted it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Knut. Yeah, nice try, buddy. We've just come out of another hackathon this year. Spent the last 2 days around here in these offices. With what was the final count actually? I didn't actually go around and count everyone. It was many people, dozens and dozens of people. Yeah, it was at least like 65, maybe 70 people, and it's been a really great, energizing couple of days. 9 more projects. We had 9 projects last year, so another 9 this year. I haven't been round and done the survey yet of what's made it onto GitHub, but last year I think it was all of them. So stay tuned. I'll be blogging about it. On agilescientific.com, and I'll do a summary of all the projects there. But you're going to get to hear about some of them, probably 3 of them, I think. I see some of my victims sitting in the audience. So we're going to get some of them to come down and share with you what they did. But first you have to listen to me for a bit. Now, if you want these slides for some reason, there's a couple of links probably in here somewhere. It's swung, so swu.ng Force 2019. That's this little slide deck here. These are some of the words, I guess, that people threw out yesterday after when we gathered in here for the demos to listen to what everyone had been up to. It almost always comes out like this, with fun in the middle. Sometimes it's like exhausting or tiring or something like that. I think pastry made it on this year. So there's a substantial amount of pastry. I think there must be some sort of Norwegian pastry glut that someone was trying to unload on us. But yeah, we were very well fed, so MPD definitely looked after us. So I like teamwork, pressure cooker, data cleaning. Some of these things will be really familiar to anyone who's already working in this sort of digital space. But it's good to see those themes come back. And last year I presented this assertion as a hypothesis, but I was involved in running 8 hackathons last year, and we will, I think we'll reach 11 this year. And I know now for sure that when you put people in a space like this and you take away some of the trappings of sort of ordinary corporate life, like email and meetings, and undue amounts of sort of, shall we say, oversight or management, then people can actually do really remarkable things in a very short period of time and surprise even themselves. So I'm now presenting this to you as a fact. And that's why I think we need to find ways, and I would challenge the people in this room who are involved in the hackathon to find ways to go back to work and maintain that sort of modality, like that. How can you continue to work in such an energetic and highly productive way? Because I'm certain that it can be done. And from a sort of conference point of view, I just want to commend the Force and Peter Bormann in particular, because right from the beginning, he recognized that it's incredibly important to not only have this kind of more or less one-way knowledge transfer in a face-to-face setting, but you can supercharge a community by getting people together to collaborate around projects that they care about. So if you're on committees, SEG, EAG, APG, what have you, these organizations find it really difficult to innovate around this stuff. It's scary for them. They depend on those meetings for revenue, and they've also got a sort of idée fixe about what they need to deliver. And a lot of that's coming from, traditional sort of scientific citations and having papers on your resume and stuff like that. But they're not serving the community, at least not now that we're trying to accelerate the pace of innovation with digital stuff. So you as someone who's sitting in this room already, or if you've been at AirSim this week, or if you're involved in digital stuff in your company, you can help them bring more of this to a bigger community, because it's only by doing that that we're really going to see this have the effect that it can have in the time that we want it to have that effect, right? Now, last time I spoke to you, we were fresh off of this hackathon. This was right before EAGE in Copenhagen in 2018. And this was a sort of a bit of a breakout event. It sold out very, very quickly. There were, I think, 64 people there. It was the biggest one we'd had until this hackathon here this week. And so in a way, I felt like it was sort of peak. It's like peak hackathon or a breakout event. So I was feeling pretty excited about that, and I showed you some numbers of how many people have come along to the hackathons that I've organised or that Agile's organised. And this is what I showed you last year. We were sort of heading for, what was that, 250 people for 2018. In fact, we ended up at over 300 coming through events last year, and this year we've gone past that already with more hackathons to come. And plus, there was an event in Kuala Lumpur earlier this year that I wasn't involved in at all. There was another event in London that the Software Underground, Filippo Bergini, organised back in May. And there's another one that I can't remember the name of the conference, but it's also in KL. So KL's rocking it as far as subsurface hackathon goes. And I've not been involved in those. So there's at least another 100, maybe 150, 200 people that aren't on here. So that kind of growth, that beyond Moore's law, exponential growth that Peter mentioned earlier, like that's a real thing. That's what's happening. The level of interest is huge. Now, we also teach courses, and it's the same thing there, right? So in our classes, we've had 440 people through our Python classes this year. So, and these are all subsurface professionals, petrophysicists, geologists, reservoir engineers, who have recognized that, they're not going to be, and they don't want to be, a software engineer, but without these digital skills and this literacy that, whether you want to be a programmer or learn to code per se or not, learning some code is a very quick path to understanding why does open source matter? Why do we care about open data? What are web APIs? What is the web actually for? What are applications? Because one thing we encounter over and over again is that until they've been through some actual training and learned a bit about coding, people actually have a really hard time understanding these things. Like, they're super abstract. So you can talk about data lakes and you can talk about microservices all day long, but many people who might be nodding on the inside, they're going, what the hell is that? Like that, and that's a problem, right? That's like slowing us down. So, if you don't have some kind of skill development program in your organization, I really would urge you to help those people in your organizations get going. People come through our classes all the time, and the first thing they say is like, I've wanted to learn to code for 10 years. Like, imagine that. Imagine carrying around that many ideas and that kind of aspiration for that long, but just not knowing how to get started. We tell people in the class that learning to code will give you a day a week for the rest of your career. And I actually would even potentially go further than that. I feel like before I could express myself in code, I feel like I was operating at about 60%. Like, so if you're in charge of an organization, you want to think about what kind of massive productivity, like opportunity loss, you're suffering with that skill gap. So here are the humans who we've had here for the last few days. I like this picture because it sort of reminds us that these things are substantially about individuals and about people. And we have to have these epiphanies as individuals about digital, because like I was looking for some data yesterday. This is a report from the Alberta Geological Survey. So this is part of a government regulator in Canada for a massive, very wealthy industry, and this is how they release data. Right? It's a PDF. This is probably a word table, or it might even be Excel. Right? Excel used as a table layout program. And then these these annotations are embedded in the images. So now I've got this sort of massive problem. Now you're going to hear in a minute about oh, actually, it's a massive problem getting data out of unstructured data sets, like piles of PDFs. This is not digital data. Until the author of this report and their quality assurance people have been through some kind of training about digital, they're going to keep releasing nonsense like this that we can't use, right? So let's get ahead of that. And by the way, those of us in industry can reach out to government regulators and so on and help them understand the importance of producing data that we can actually consume and do the things we want with. Yeah. So sorry, I'm really ranting now, so I'll just dial it back a bit, and we can just look at some photos of people at hackathons. So yeah, hopefully you'll get the impression from these pictures that we're trying to get better with diversity, and that's on every dimension. It is not just young people or young guys with beards that do this stuff. But I get that all the time, right? Like when we talk to people about hackathons, people are like, "Oh yeah, that would be cool for the young people. Like that must be popular with students." I'm like, no, actually, probably many of the people with 30 years of experience in your organisation are desperate to do something like this. Like help them out. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about all these projects in a second. There was a segment on NRK the other night, which you might have seen. If you're on Software Underground, there's a link in there to that. If you go to the Force Hack 2019 channel, you'll find it there. Anyway, these are projects we hacked. I won't read these out. I'll just go a little bit quiet for a second. You can read them. Reasonable diversity. Peter, bless his cotton socks, has been through a lot of effort recently to gather open data sets for these problems. So many of these were driven by the availability of data that Peter had put together. So things like core descriptions, for example, and he spent a lot of time labeling things for that purpose. The Make Me That Rock thing was interesting. That's like being able to, for example, ask for rock properties sort of spatially, like here, this depth, these conditions, like what kind of conditions or rock properties might I expect? You'll hear from them in a minute. The three that I've highlighted there are going to come and talk to you in a second, and they also were recognised yesterday evening with some prizes down at Fermenton. We had a couple of seismic projects, Lost Frequencies, Siamese Seismic, which was also a prize winner, but we're not going to hear from them this afternoon, or this morning. Another project with Core, and this unstructured documents, which comes up in every single hackathon we do. So yeah, really classic, typical diversity in the range of projects. Now, who should I pick on first? I think we'll just go down from the top. So if the rock stars folks can sort of make their way gingerly down here. Now we're going to do what you never do, which is like hot swap this HDMI. So have one last look at this in case it's the last time we see it.